Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. So today I'm going to be reading an article from Maddie Stone over at Grist. It's a cool paper that often covers right to repair. From time to time you're going to hear screaming in the background, and that's because there's a person in the house who's really bad at League of Legends, who's losing horribly like they always do when they play League of Legends, and they are raging as they do every time they play League of Legends. And I have no control over this, unfortunately, so you will simply have to deal with it. That being said, let's get on to this article. This says, Microsoft quietly supported legislation to make it easier to fix devices. Here's why that's a big deal. Major tech companies have long opposed the right to repair, but Microsoft is finally engaging with lawmakers and activists. In March, Irene Plenifish, a senior director of government affairs at Microsoft, sent an email to the 8 members of the Washington State Senate's Environment, Technology, and Energy Committee, which is about to hold a hearing to discuss a bill intended to facilitate the repair of consumer electronics. For those of you who are not aware, I did try back in 2020 to see if there was any chance of getting this passed. There were 2 people here. This was Derek Stanford, and I forget his name, unfortunately. He unfortunately passed away, but this guy that was in the middle over here also seemed to be kind of sympathetic to our cause. Unfortunately, we failed because there was a gentleman there that said that we may install TikTok on people's phones, who represented CTA, who represents Samsung, who, by the way, installs TikTok on people's phones. But that's salt for another day. So TLDR, we kind of failed in 2020 because of the typical fear-mongering you get from lying lobbyists that, again, will never have to pay for their crimes. That being said, continuing. Typically, when consumer tech companies reach out to lawmakers concerning right to repair bills, which seek to make it easier for people to fix their devices, thus saving money and reducing electronics waste, it's because they want them killed. Planifish, however, wanted the committee to know that Microsoft, which is headquartered in Redmond, Washington, was on board with this one, which had already passed the Washington House. Quote, I am writing to state Microsoft's support for E2SHB 1392, also known as the Fair Repair Act, Planifish wrote in an email to the committee. This bill fairly balances the interests of manufacturers, customers, and independent repair shops, and in doing so will provide more options for consumer device repair. Now, anytime a lobbyist for a company like Microsoft says that this is a good thing, it leads me to believe that there is a good chance that it is actually a bad thing. And that would really suck if there was some sort of poison pill in there. But just the fact they are mentioning that Microsoft supports this bill and that it is a good balance between what Microsoft wants and what we want, damn near makes me want to kind of reread the bill. The Fair Repair Act stalled out a week ago due to opposition from all 3 Republicans on the committee and Senator Lisa Wellman, a Democrat and former Apple executive. So just so everybody gets this clear, because I'll read this in comments all the time, support for right to repair is bipartisan. Further, opposition to right to repair is also bipartisan. A Senator Lisa Wellman, a Democrat and former Apple executive. Apple frequently lobbies against right to repair bills, and during a hearing, Wellman defended the iPhone maker's position that it is already doing enough on repair. I'd like a word with you, Senator, but I don't think I'd get anywhere there. But despite the bill's failure to launch this year, repair advocates say Microsoft's support, a notable first for a major U.S. tech company, is bringing other manufacturers to the table to negotiate the details of other right to repair bills for the first time. Quote, we are in the middle of more conversations with manufacturers being way more cooperative than before, Nathan Proctor, who heads the U.S. Public Interest Research Group's Right to Repair campaign, told Grist. And I think Microsoft's leadership and willingness to be first created that opportunity. Nathan Proctor and his organization is an organization that I work very closely with, and I've also given a lot of money to over the years because what he's doing is a good thing, and I support the work that he's doing in all these states. I support the educational resources and documents that him and his team have created, whether for a wheelchair right to repair in Colorado or tractor right to repair in other parts of the country. They're very good at coming up with very well-cited documentation that goes over very clearly how the manufacturers are screwing consumers in a way that is easy for legislators to digest, which makes it a lot easier to get these types of bills passed. And he's also very good, Mr. Nathan Proctor and his team, at getting groups of people together so that they kind of push manufacturers to try and do the right thing. For here, Microsoft shareholders demand right to repair. It's talking about As You Sow that pushed for a shareholder resolution to support right to repair. This is the type of work that is pushed forward by gentlemen like Nathan Proctor, Kevin O'Reilly, and their teams. And it's very, how do I put this? Good return on investment, I would say, when we provide them with money, which is why I have been happy to do so through my nonprofits. And you also see this over here, this old video, Bizarro World, Microsoft commits to releasing schematics and supports right to repair. And is Microsoft embracing right to repair? Over the past 2 years, Microsoft has really kind of stopped being, or at least wanted to stop appearing like the evil empire that they were in the 90s and early 2000s. And I do appreciate that. But more importantly, getting Microsoft on board and supporting this, that's going to spook a lot of other manufacturers because they're going to go, oh crap, this actually has a chance of passing. Like Microsoft is telling the senators this is good, which kind of gets them to come to the negotiating table rather than just make up fear, uncertainty, and doubt and claim that we are putting TikTok on people's phones, that magnetometers and microwaves will explode, and all the other hippie horseshit that you'll hear come out of the mouths of paid corporate lobbyists. Across a wide range of sectors, from consumer electronics to farm equipment, manufacturers attempt to monopolize repair of their devices by restricting access to spare parts, repair tools, and technical documentation. While manufacturers often claim that controlling the repair process limits cybersecurity and safety risks, they also financially benefit when consumers are forced to take their devices back to the manufacturer or upgrade due to limited repair options. True. Right-to-repair bills would compel manufacturers to make spare parts and information available to everyone. Proponents argue that making repair more accessible will allow consumers to use older products for longer, saving them money and reducing the environmental impact of technology, including both electronic waste and the carbon emissions associated with manufacturing new products. True. Admittedly, on this channel, I tend to not focus on that part, and I try to focus more on the you own it, you bought it, you should be able to fix what you own. If you don't really own it. And the whole, hey, isn't it nice when you can just like fix something you own instead of spend $3,000 or $30,000 or $300,000 again? But technically this is true. This also would have a good impact on the climate and the environment when you are not throwing away things that could be fixed. But despite dozens of state legislatures taking up right-to-repair bills in recent years, very few of those bills have passed due to staunch opposition from device makers and the trade associations representing them. New York State passed the first electronics right-to-repair law in the country last year, but before the governor signed it, tech lobbyists convinced her to water it down through a series of revisions. True. Like other consumer tech giants, Microsoft has historically fought right-to-repair bills while restricting access to spare parts, tools, and repair documentation to its network of authorized repair partners. In 2019, the company even helped kill a repair bill in Washington state. But in recent years, the company has started changing its tune on the issue. In 2021, following pressure from shareholders, I gotta say, I love being am I allowed to say this out loud? I love being the George Soros of right-to-repair. I love being the Peter Thiel of right-to-repair. This stuff is fun. Anyway, following pressure from shareholders, Microsoft agreed to take steps to facilitate the repair of its devices, a first for a U.S. company. Microsoft followed through on the agreement by expanding access to spare parts and service tools, including through a partnership with the repair guide site iFixit. The tech giant also commissioned a study that found repairing Microsoft products instead of replacing them can dramatically reduce both waste and carbon emissions. I don't think you need a study to demonstrate that not throwing something out is better than throwing something out for the environment, but they're on the right track here, so I am not going to be too nitpicky there. Again, they did decide to support it, so yes, fine. Microsoft has also started engaging more cooperatively with lawmakers over right-to-repair bills. In late 2021 and 2022, the company met with legislators in both Washington and New York to discuss each state's respective right-to-repair bill. In both cases, lawmakers and advocates involved in the bill negotiations described the meetings as productive. When the Washington State House introduced an electronics right-to-repair bill in January 2022, Microsoft's official position on it was neutral, something that the state representative and bill sponsor, Mia Gregerson, a Democrat, called a really big step forward at a committee hearing. Despite Microsoft's neutrality, last year's right-to-repair bill failed to pass the House amid opposition from groups like the Consumer Technology Association. Am I allowed to say out loud that it really bothers me that this group is never held accountable? Here they said that we may install TikTok on people's phones and this is bad. The organization that this man, whose name is Charlie Brown, represents, that literally pre-installs TikTok on people's phones by default. We don't install TikTok on people's phones. He said we install TikTok on people's phones. The organization he represents actually installs TikTok on people's phones. Like, am I allowed to be mad at that? Am I being petty for continuously pointing that out? That this man lied, got away with it, screwed us all over, and nobody seems to care. There's no consequences for these people, ever. Anyway, later that year, though, the right-to-repair movement scored some big wins. In June 2022, Colorado's governor signed the nation's first right-to-repair law focused on wheelchairs. The very next day, New York's legislature passed a bill that would then become the nation's first electronics right-to-repair law. It's useless, though, but whatever. Well, you know enough of how I feel about the New York State bill and the garbage governor of New York State, Governor Kathy Hochul. When Washington lawmakers revived their right-to-repair bill for the 2023 legislative cycle, Microsoft once again came to the negotiating table. From state senator and bill sponsor Joe Nugent's perspective, Microsoft's view is, we see this coming, we'd rather be part of the conversation than outside, and we want to make sure it's done in a thoughtful way. Proctor, whose organization was also involved in negotiating the Washington bill, said that Microsoft had a few specific requests, including that the bill require repair shops to possess a third-party technical certification and carry insurance. This this is a tough pill to swallow. And I understand and I respect Nathan Proctor saying, if this is a compromise that must be made to get this put forward in a state, fine, F it, we'll do it if it means having Microsoft on board, because Microsoft being on board discredits so much of the opposition arguments. But that being said, I want you to understand what a grift this is. And I genuinely do mean that when I say grift. One of the largest third parties that certifies technicians is a company called COMPTIA. They have a nonprofit 501c3 and a nonprofit 501c6 trade association. Now, CompTIA creates certifications such as the A+. The A+ is an exam that well into the mid-2000s in 2014, 15, 16, and 17 was still asking questions such as, I'm not kidding, how many FireWire 400 devices can you daisy chain? In 2014, they were asking questions that had not been relevant since the demise of Windows 2000 and XP. These certifications cost $350, sometimes considerably more than $350, and teach you information that is fundamentally worthless. I don't mean stuff that's like, it's lame, like the proper amount of flux to use or how to make a solder joint. I mean genuinely, absolutely worthless. And how much money do you think the director and president of that organization makes for creating certifications that are absolute garbage? Because if you were to guess that he made $1.1 million in 2017, you'd be right. And if you were to guess that he made $1.3 million in 2020, you'd also be right. So he got a raise of Remember 2020? Remember when most of you were going through economic hell, when you were not allowed to go to work, when you were wondering whether or not you'd be able to afford your rent? Do you guys remember 2020? This guy made $1.3 million off of having an organization that asks you in the 2020s, how many FireWire 400 ports can you daisy chain? That is a grift. And unfortunately, I think it's really important to understand that while this is a compromise, a grift got written into that bill. CompTIA, in my opinion, is a grift. They make their money by certifying people in order to get jobs that require you have their certifications that are fundamentally useless. And for a very long period of time, CompTIA was going out of their way to lobby against right to repair. I did a video here, what pisses me off about CompTIA and why you should never give them money, and I was going over the many times they testified against right to repair by giving false, untrue testimony that just fostered fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I also created this commercial that I hope as many of you will spread as far and wide as humanly possible, that includes factual testimony from people like CompTIA testifying against right to repair using fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This is a commercial that I actually paid my good friend Jake Palumbo to make. He's a good friend from 15 years ago, back when I worked in the studio business. He made the music for it, which I really appreciate. Stop paying CompTIA for A+ certifications. I will leave a link to this down below. This is a very, very important video that is more relevant now than ever because, again, it is being written into legislation that they want to see people have these third-party certifications. And I think it's really important that if this gentleman is going to make $1.3 million off of what I believe to be a grift, that at the very, listen, you won. Maybe next year you'll get 1.6 million, you effing prick. But they deserve to get called out for it. Because, again, anybody who has ever taken a CompTIA certification, like A+ or Network Plus, because they needed to get a job, you know that you never used any of what was in that certification to actually do your job. It is purely there as a troll toll, and they make money off of it. And that guy, again, it's not that he's a millionaire off of it. It's that he makes $1 million a year off of this. And to be clear, I don't have a problem with somebody making money if they add value to the world, but it really, really bothers me when somebody's making $1 million a year by putting up a troll toll that does not add value to society. The A+ does not add value to society. It just doesn't. It just does. It was useless 10 years ago. It is laughable at this point in time that certification has any relevance. Anyway, back to the article. Proctor, whose organization was also involved in negotiating the Washington bill, said that Microsoft had a few specific requests, including that the bill require shops to possess third-party technical certification and carry insurance. It was also important to Microsoft that the bill only cover products manufactured after the bill's implementation date, and that manufacturers be required to provide the public only the same parts and documents that their authorized repair providers already receive. Some of the company's requests, Proctor said, were tough for advocates to concede on, but we did because they thought they were doing this in good faith. Now, one of the problems there is if the authorized repair center only gets the full motherboard or a full screen assembly, this may mean that Microsoft gets to get away with not actually providing the stuff that we need. So let's, if we say, hey, we'd like a schematic to the motherboard so we could fix the motherboard, then they can say, well, we don't provide that to the authorized repair provider. Sucks to be you. We will see how that works out in time. Because, again, sometimes authorized repair provider means the Apple authorized service provider, and sometimes the authorized service provider means the actual person that does their refurbishing at the depot level for their refurbished products. And those people very often are able to do motherboard repair, but we'll see how that works out. In early March, just before the Fair Repair Act was put to a vote in the House, Microsoft decided to support it. Microsoft has consistently supported expanding safe, reliable, and sustainable options for consumer device repair, Plenfish told Grist in an emailed statement. No, you didn't, because you opposed this in the past. We have in the past opposed specific pieces of legislation that did not fairly balance the interests of manufacturers, customers, and independent repair shops in achieving this goal. You mean the interest of this dude to make his $1 million a year off of garbage certifications. Because again, something tells me that there was a lot of lobbying against right to repair from this one organization that creates troll toll certifications. And funny, they stopped lobbying against it right around the time that this garbage got added to this bill. But again, we will continue moving forward here. We have in the past opposed specific pieces of legislation that did not fairly balance the interests of manufacturers, customers, and independent repair shops in achieving this goal. HB 1392, as considered on the House floor, achieved this balance. While the bill cleared the House by a vote of 58 to 38, it faced an uphill battle in the Senate, where either Wellman or one of the bill's Republican opponents on the Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee would have had it change their mind for the Fair Repair Act to move forward. Microsoft representatives held meetings with several legislators, Plenfish said, to urge support for House Bill 1392. This is probably the first time any major company has been like, this is not bad, Newton said. It certainly helped shift the tone. Microsoft's engagement appears to have shifted the tone beyond Washington state as well. As other manufacturers became aware that the company was sitting down with lawmakers and repair advocates, they realized they couldn't just ignore us, Proctor said. True. His organization has since held meetings about proposed right to repair legislation in Minnesota with the Consumer Technology Association and TechNet, two large trade associations that frequently lobby against right to repair bills and rarely sit down with advocates. True, they're also very disingenuous, and you're welcome to search my channel for the word either CTA or TechNet, and you will find their testimony along with my counter testimony, which is usually them reading off a piece of paper the lies that they were told by the manufacturer. A lot of conversations have been quite productive around the Minnesota bill, Proctor said. TechNet declined to comment on negotiations regarding the Minnesota right to repair bill or whether Microsoft's support for a bill in Washington has impacted its engagement strategy. The Consumer Technology Association shared letters it sent to legislators outlining its reasons for opposing the bills in Washington and Minnesota, but it also declined to comment on specific meetings or on Microsoft. While Minnesota's right to repair bill is still making its way through committees in the House and Senate and in Washington state, the Fair Repair Act's opponents were ultimately unmoved by Microsoft's support. Senator Drew McEwen, one of the Republicans on the Energy, Environment, and Technology Committee who opposed the bill, said that Microsoft called his office to tell him the company supported the Fair Repair Act. I asked why after years of opposition, and they said it was based on customer feedback, McGowan told Grist. By the way, every one of you should understand this. They said customer feedback. Customer feedback got them to change their mind. I want you to understand that if every single person watching this channel were to email Tim Cook, every single person watching this channel were to email Tesla, everybody watching this channel were to email Mercedes or any of these other companies, believe it or not, that shit actually matters. Send them a picture, just a basic short email. Send them a picture of you using your 5-year-old or 10-year-old or 20-year-old car, phone, or computer. And just tell them, by the way, I am going to make sure that this thing continues to function and I'm not going to buy a new one until you embrace publicly the right to ownership and the right to repair. Just so you know. Not going to be mean, not yelling, not cursing. These are 3 5-year-old phones that I got off of eBay. This is my daily driver, this is my spare, and this is my parts phone. So if anything happens to it, I am just going to keep fixing this thing until it dies. I have enough devices to last me the next 10 or 20 years, and I'm not buying any more of your stuff. And I'm making sure my family does the same. That stuff actually could do something. And as I say over here, Microsoft, again, a part of it was likely also the shareholders as well, but when you have large shareholders push for resolutions for them to support right to repair, that does something. That really does do something. And Nathan Proctor's team, again, when I say return on investment, to be clear, because I'm talking about nonprofits here, I'm not actually investing in getting shares. It's a turn of phrase to demonstrate that I believe that the money that we granted these organizations to do what they're doing has genuinely resulted in a more potentially freedom-loving culture from these companies when it comes to owning your own stuff. And I really think that his organization and him personally as well, along as his assistant Kevin O'Reilly, deserve a lot of thanking for that. Ultimately, I do believe there is a compromise path that can be reached, but it will take a lot of work, McGowan said. Most likely that means destroying this bill, so I hope they have no say in that matter, but we'll see. Washington State Representative and bill sponsor Mia Gregerson wonders if Microsoft could have had a greater impact by testifying publicly in support of the bill. While Gregerson credits the company with helping Right to Repair get further than ever in her state this year, Microsoft's support was entirely behind the scenes. They did a lot of meetings, Gregerson said, but if you're going to be the first in the nation on this, you've got to do more. Microsoft declined to say why it didn't testify in support of the Fair Repair Act or whether that was a mistake. The company also didn't say whether it would support future iterations of the Washington State bill or other state right to repair bills. But it signaled to Grist that it might, and in doing so, Microsoft appears to have taken the next small step out of the shadows. We encourage all lawmakers considering right to repair legislation to look at House Bill 1392 as a model going forward due to its balanced approach, Plenfish said. First thing I want to do is I want to thank Maddie Stone with Grist for consistently covering right to repair with a 100% level of accuracy, but also the level of research into the statements that were made, into documents when it comes to lobbyists doing things behind the scenes. It has consistently been 100%. This is real journalism, and I think that they do an absolute amazing job. There is a little mark on the top of the site where they talk about donating to them. And again, if this site has, I don't see a single ad on this page. You may not like some of the other articles they write. You may like it. You may not. This is actual, honest, real journalism, which is really cool. I appreciate this. So I would actually donate to this, and I would suggest if anybody else finds this type of stuff useful, by all means, $1 is probably won't kill me. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That being said, yeah, I think it's cool to see that Microsoft is getting on board with it. It really just comes down to, again, I remember the Microsoft of the 90s. I remember the Microsoft of the 2000s. It's really difficult for me to believe that they are just now becoming the good guy, and you bet your ass that I would watch everything that they're doing, particularly when they're saying we need you to have third-party certifications. Again, if you're telling me that I need that, I don't want to get an A+. I don't need to know how many FireWire 800 devices I can daisy chain in 2023 in order to fix your motherboard. And I definitely, on a principled level, do not want to give to Todd's $1.3 million per year salary for these toll certifications. That bothers me. And again, it's not going to be easy to notch what I believe would be a full 100% win. And I also think it's important to note that the Minnesota bill that is being pushed right now has nothing in it about this requiring a third-party certification. And I would really prefer to move more in that direction of those types of bills than in this one. But this is better than nothing, because several years ago we were being laughed out of the legislature entirely by people that said that we put TikTok on people's phones, who had zero credibility because their own companies were actually pre-installing TikTok on people's phones without their consent. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that Microsoft is actually, changing their mind and deciding to do the right thing after 20 or 30 years of being evil? Or do you think that this is just a blessing in disguise, or a Trojan horse? You think this is just kind of like a Trojan horse? They could pretend to be in on it, and in reality just add all these poison pills to it, where the insurance is going to be like $15,000 a month or something, or the certifications you're going to have to get are going to be like $2,000 a week, and you have to constantly renew them, or there'll be certifications that are nearly impossible to get, or you'll have to get a certification for every single revision of every single device or some garbage like that makes it genuinely useless. I'm going to watch very closely as this unfolds. I had a little bit of interest in the state of Washington. I did pay for a lobbyist in there 2 years ago, and I honestly was planning to do a little bit more into the future if this shows promise. I was really discouraged a few years ago when you had people that were convincing the legislators that it would be a serious issue that we would look through the laptops of students and steal their homework. I'm not kidding. This actually happened. They were talking about how we're going to look through the laptops of students. You need to protect the students' data because these repairs, that's what I want. I want your book report. I want your trigonometry homework. I want your freshman chemistry homework, because I was never able to pass freshman chemistry myself. I need to copy your homework. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to make $200 to $400 a pop fixing motherboards, recovering data, getting information off of clicking hard drives, replacing screens. I have no interest in actually making money and feeding my employees. What I really want to do is I want your book report. I want to know what your opinion was of Catcher in the Rye. And they believed it. That really made me believe that there was absolutely no point and that Washington State was absolutely hopeless. But maybe it is kind of hopeful, and maybe there's a point to tossing a little bit more in for another lobbying round this time around. Yeah, but this shit bothers me. Oh, that bothers me. Oh, man. $1 million a year for CompTIA. For that, not for the organization, for the director of the organization. Yo, that actually hurts. That's painful. That is painful. Anyway, that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now. Not even remotely close to Linus territory yet, but I'm working on it. We have these little mugs that say clouds are for rain, making fun of the fact that the world is moving towards cloud services for everything. Clouds are for rain. No to subscriptions, privacy risks, service shutdowns, closed ecosystems, platform lock-ins, and always online. We have the good old-fashioned Johnny Deary's Tears making fun of a certain manufacturer in the state of Colorado that may or may not have had it stuck to them by the governor and the right to repair bill that just passed recently. And it's not lying, it's commercial real estate. We also used to have a dealership Tears mug and a bunch of other stuff at this link that for some reason is not showing up. I'm going to try to figure out why that is after I'm done with this video. And we have this Atten Haria rework station that is still on sale for $204.99, free shipping, and now same-day shipping from our store in Austin, Texas, for anybody who's interested in the hot air station we use for all our repairs. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.